chorus again or something, but there was nothing like that at all. It was just like he just took whatever I sent him as the finished thing. So I think that sometimes some of the songs would have been a lot better had we been able to sort of work on them and that writing stage longer and kind of developed them into a more, more of a traditional song form to some degree.
Undeterred by the critical reaction to Kill Uncle, Morrissey assembled a live band and embarked on his first major world tour. On his return in 1992, the singer once again found himself in search of a producer to work on his new album. The renowned guitarist Mick Ronson, who had made his name collaborating with David Bowie and later Bob Dylan, became an unlikely candidate.
Morrissey called me one day and said, do I have any ideas about a producer for the next album? And I suggested Mick Ronson, kind of almost half joking really, because to me, as a teenager, Mick Ronson was my absolute hero. He was just God. So when I suggested Mick Ronson, no one had heard, he'd been sort of out of the picture for years. No one really knew where he was or what he was doing. It was kind of almost a sort of off-the-cuff sort of, oh, why not, And Morrissey said, what a great idea, can you get hold of him? And I thought, wow, how do I get hold of Mick Ronson? I can hardly believe he was a real person, really, And a friend of mine knew somebody, somebody who used to manage Mick Ronson years ago. So I asked him if he could ask this guy if he knew, blah, blah. And a few weeks went by, and one day I was in my little studio at home in the house I had there in Camden, and the phone rang, and the voice said, this northern accent said, oh, excuse the northern accent. So I'm like, oh, is that Mark? I said, my name's Michael Ronson. And I just thought, wow, And he said, I won't do the northern accent. He said, I hear you want me to talk to me about producing a Morrissey record. I said, yeah, that's right. Yeah. He says, what's he like? He said, well, what's he like? And I said, well, he's very likeable. He's a charming man, I joked, ha-ha. And very quiet, very shy, but, but great. And he said, no, what's his music like? And I thought, where have you been, I said, well, he was a singer in the Smiths. He said, what were they like? So clearly, he was calling from New York, right? And he had no idea about Morrissey at all at the time.
Despite his ignorance of Morrissey's work to date, Ronson brought both muscle and vigour to the subsequent recordings, his rock background elevating the heavier arrangements of new composers Alan White and Boz Bora. Although previous producers may have lamented the end of their creative relationships with Morrissey, few could question Ronson's involvement.
I think you always feel, if an artist goes with a different producer, you feel, a bit sad. Why didn't they stay with me? What's wrong with me? Oh. But I think I was probably busy anyway, and I thought the album was really good, and I think the whole thing of doing it with Mick Ronson, obviously before he died and everything, it was a good move.
I think Mick Ronson did a great job on Your Arsenal, because the actual band that he pulled together for that album, which was like the rockabilly band, as it were, I saw them playing, that was the first time Morrissey started playing live with a band, I think. He started going out, and I went to see him play at Wembley, and I was so disappointed. I mean, I really felt they crucified the songs that I'd co-written with him on the first album. I was like, I can't believe this. And I thought, then these are the guys that are playing on his new album? I was like, But when I heard the album, I thought it was a very good piece of work.
After the commercial and critical disappointment of Kill Uncle, Your Arsenal saw Morrissey back on track, appealing not only to his British fans, but to a growing legion of supporters in the United States. With its surprisingly hard-edged approach, it proved that Morrissey could successfully exercise Johnny Marr's influence and be accepted on his own terms.
The album was good, and a lot of credit, I think, has to go to Mick Ronson. I think it was important for Morrissey, I think, to work with someone like him, someone he respected, because obviously he was a huge Mick Ronson fan, being, you know, a big Bowie kind of glam era fan as I were. And I think, God rest him, if Mick Ronson had lived longer, he would have most probably continued working. I would have liked to have thought he would have continued working with Morrissey, but alas, it was not to be.
There was trouble in the air, however. Whereas Englishness had been a common theme in Morrissey's lyrics since he began with the Smiths, his solo work had tackled racism and nationalism with questionable success. With the track National Front Disco, Morrissey began to be criticised for what sceptics saw as his alignment with the politics of the far right.
The crime that Morrissey did commit was that he failed to patronise his audience and lecture them about the evils of racism in that way that, I mean, really, that you can only talk about racism or race in the music world, certainly back then, and perhaps even now, if you write a song in which you wag your finger and you say, these people are bad, and you mustn't have anything to do with them, end of story. You know, if you don't patronise and write a rubbish song, then you're committing a crime. And that's what Morrissey did. He wrote a fantastic song which did more than simply wag the finger. It was a sympathetic song about a misguided person, you know, who was lured into a certain way of looking at the world, which, I mean, and also Morrissey, being, you know, the little Englander, was very openly and bravely delineating the line between his own attachment to England and Englishness and this world which he had nothing to do with, you know, that kind of politics. But, as I say, the problem, his crime, was that he didn't make a rubbish pop song in which he wagged his finger at the audience.
The situation came to a head in August 1992, when Morrissey performed at the Madstock Festival in Finsbury Park, London. It was a concert he would come to regret.
Summer of 1992, I remember it as if it were only yesterday. I was a journalist working for the NME, which is the world's biggest selling rock weekly, or was then, and Morrissey played at the Madstock Festival in Finsbury Park with Madness, a very British group who often attracted quite an unusual following, in that Madness themselves were very socialistic, very anti-racist, but a lot of their hardcore fans since the early days had been slightly dubious, shall we say. There was a bit of an old skinhead element in there, and some people with, shall we say, rather robust political views. Morrissey appeared on stage as support, draped in a Union Jack, and something kind of went wrong. And I don't know whether Morrissey thought this would endear him to the crowd, but it didn't. Something went wrong. He got coined off the stage. People threw things at him. It was a real farrago. It was a disastrous thing to happen and shocking.
What I find very strange about Finsbury Park is that when he wrapped the flag around him in the middle of glamorous glue, it wasn't anything unique. He'd been doing that for some time. He'd done it the week before in the Leising Festival in Switzerland. He'd done the Belfort Festival in France. And it was just a part of the act. And it was suddenly the New Musical Express here who had, I know, I better be careful what I'm saying here because I get myself sued, because it was